Hey everyone, and welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm Cymbeline Kennedy, and this is the show where we bring you the day's biggest movie news, and of course we give you insight into what it all means. Finally back with us today is AMC Movie News Senior Editor, Mr. John Campea.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. I'm back. Thank you again so much to everybody for all the emails and the support and the stuff that you guys sent during last week. Was a pretty rough week for us, but thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it, and I'm really glad to be back.
You were missed, and we're glad to have you back. And also joining us today is our amazing editor. He's the guy who does all the stuff in the background, Mr. Dennis Tsang.
Hi, guys. Welcome back, John. Hope you get some rest. I know how tiring traveling can be.
I kid you not. In L.A. time, I left my parents' place, the Campea Ranch, there at 1:30 in the morning. Flew 5.5 hours, stuck in LA traffic. I haven't been home long. You can probably tell by looking at me I'm beat, but I'm excited to get back to AMC Movie Talk.
Well, we're glad to have you back. The art of tracking and box office projections are usually pretty accurate in Hollywood, more than 90% of the time. But every once in a while, a film still manages to surprise folks. The recent Brad Pitt film World War Z was predicted by many to be a colossal bomb at the box office, with well-documented production problems and extensive reshoots. However, it soon became clear that the film was actually going to make the studio a little bit of money, and now it's exceeded that as well. Paramount Pictures announced yesterday that World War Z has now earned over $500 million at the worldwide box office, making it Brad Pitt's most successful film of his career. His previous best was 2004's Troy with $497.3 million. John, what do you make of World War Z becoming Pitt's biggest box office hit?
I think this is a good thing, actually. Now, it's important for us to keep in mind that just because it's made the most money at the box office does not necessarily mean it's the most profitable Brad Pitt film. Now, I haven't researched it, but that award could fall to another one of Pitt's movies. But certainly none of Pitt's movies in history have made over $500 million. And you know what? This is a great example of, I was talking to a friend of mine about this, that whenever we hear about a movie after being done shooting, going into reshoots, we all think, oh no, terrible, terrible things. But this is an example of World War Z of where them going into reshoots was a good thing for the movie. Because when you read about how the movie was supposed to go and how it was going to end, it seems like it was pretty stupid. And it seemed like they thought, you know what? This is going to cost us some more money to fix this, but we know how to fix it. Let's fix it. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say that World War Z is going to be one of my top 10 movies of the year, because it's not. But it's a film that surprisingly, I ended up liking pretty much. I enjoyed the film. I had a good time watching it. All-time great? No. One of the best of the year? No. But I liked it. And as a zombie film and as a global scale epic summer blockbuster film, I think it makes sense and is good for Pitt that this ends up being his biggest film ever. Hard to imagine that it's bigger than like Mr. and Mrs. Smith or things like that. But yeah, for me, it seems to make sense. What do you think, Dennis?
Yeah, I'm kind of actually surprised. You know, as big a name as Brad Pitt is, you'd think that a movie like Ocean's 11 or Curious Case of Benjamin Button or something like that would have done bigger at the box office. And for me, like World War Z was okay. You know, I enjoyed it. It wasn't anything special. So it is a little surprising that for me, like, you know, I mean, he was great in like 12 Monkeys, but that wasn't like a huge hit or anything. But World War Z, like, this is like a huge worldwide hit, and it just shows how the importance of the foreign market is. I mean, everything, it's I think 100, close to 200 million domestically, but it's like 300 million overseas, and it's just interesting because that's the way kind of movies are going nowadays in terms of how people or how the studios look at profitability. And it's actually kind of giving me hope for Pacific Rim. I used to be on the other end of like, I doubt they're ever going to make a sequel, but Pacific Rim is closing to like 350 total worldwide.
Getting close to 350, but it's still really short of where it needs to be to break even.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's getting into the ballpark of where they might think about it. So,
and you know what? And I think it reminds me too about how, let's not forget, 500 million is a great number And I think that because we're used to talking in Avengers numbers, right? We're used to talking about the billion-dollar films. We're used to talking about, Man of Steel, the $700 million films. $500 million is a great result at the box office, even if it cost your film $200 million to make.
And I think people really like the book and they really like zombie movies. And this was such a different take on zombies that I think people were pleasantly surprised.
Sure, yeah.
The first poster and images for the upcoming film Parkland have hit the web that you can see here, recounting the chaotic events that occurred in Dallas, Texas on November 22nd, 1963. Parkland weaves together the perspectives of a handful of ordinary individuals suddenly thrust into extraordinary circumstances. The young doctors and nurses at Parkland Hospital, Dallas's chief of the Secret Service, an unwitting cameraman who captured what became the most watched and examined film in history, the FBI agents who nearly had the gunman within their grasp, the brother of Lee Harvey Oswald left to deal with his shattered family, and JFK's security team. Witnesses to both the president's death and Vice President Lyndon Johnson's rise to power over a nation whose innocence was forever altered. The film stars Zac Efron, Marsha Gray Harden, Billy Bob Thornton, Paul Giamatti, Jackie Earle Haley, Colin Hanks, Ron Livingston, Jeremy Strong, and Smallville's Tom Welling. Dennis, are you looking forward to Parkland?
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I like JFK, and I like the whole, kind of dealings and mystery about what happened. And I think this is a different take on it. You're going to be seeing it from the different perspectives of people who aren't like the main operators in the government and stuff like that, or even involved in the conspiracy. The one interesting thing, though, is that the director, Peter Landsman, this is his first movie that he's ever directed, and it has a lot of really good actors in it, and it's seems like a very complex story, which I think he wrote as well. So I'm not sure how he's going to handle this as a first time director.
It's funny when you got all the actors in this film that you have, including Zac Efron, which Zac Efron I think is going to be not to the level of success. Let me be clear about that, of a Leonardo DiCaprio. But I think he's going to eventually turn into another Leonardo DiCaprio. Because remember, everybody was getting sick of Leonardo DiCaprio. He was the teenage magazine poster boy, and everybody just wrote him off. And then eventually, over decades, we realized, oh yeah, this guy's actually a hell of an actor. I think we're in for the same kind of thing with I just said his name.
Efron.
With Efron. I was about to say Zack Snyder, but no, with Zac Efron, who, once again, I don't think to the level of Leonardo DiCaprio, but I think we're going to realize this guy's actually one hell of an actor. The funny thing is that despite the subject matter is so rich, and you've got such a really good cast, obviously with the Paul Giamatti in there as well, all anybody wants to talk about online is Tom Welling. Smallville's Tom Welling. Let's just be really clear about this. His name isn't on the poster. So when you look at the poster, it's got like the top 6 people listed across the top. Tom Welling is not there. This is going to be a small role for Welling, but I join you, fellow Smallville fans, in being happy that we're going to see him working again. So check mark for that.
I'm so excited about this movie. Fun fact, I was born on November 22nd, and my last name being Kennedy, I've been obsessed with the JFK shooting forever and have watched hours and hours and hours of footage on conspiracy theories and what could have happened. So I'm really excited to see another take on the story.
All right, folks, we've reached that part of the show for buy and sell. Here's how this works. In front of her, Chrisley's got a bunch of other items in the world of movie news. She's going to run them down, and then Dennis and I are simply going to say whether we buy it or sell it. So, Chrisley, what do we got?
Regular Breaking Bad writer George Mastras has signed on to write the upcoming feature film 90 Church. Snowy and the Huntsman director Rupert Sanders is attached to helm the big screen take on the novel of the same name, which is officially described as follows. From 1950 through the late 1960s, America feared 2 great enemies, communism and illegal drugs. While the espionage stories have been well publicized, the war against drugs was far more violent and has remained mostly secret. At its peak, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, the FBN, enlisted only 350 agents worldwide. In New York City, the center of organized crime, and Rum Report, there were only 35 street agents in the Bureau's office at 90 Church Street. While the FBI refused even to acknowledge organized crime, these agents stood alone against a well-organized mafia and vicious drug cartels. To survive against impossible odds, the agents use incredibly brutal and cunning tactics to make cases and bring the war to a stalemate. Their violent exploits on the streets of New York City became legendary to other law enforcement agencies and the underworld. John, buy or sell the sounds of 90 Church?
I can't buy this enough. This sounds great. I eat up all these types of like those period piece mob movies, and whether it's the Untouchables or anything like that. I love these types of films, even when they're not done all that well. I still kind of eat them up. And just the description, the fact of knowing it's based on true stuff, and whenever we get to see period piece like this, and we get to learn something as well that we're not really familiar with, I get really excited about stuff like that. So for me, it's a buy.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to cautiously buy this. Yeah, I mean, having one of the writers from Breaking Bad, I think, is a good sign. Rupert Sanders, he directed a Snow White and the Huntsman, which I thought had like some good things about it, but I think overall it was kind of bloated and needed some rearranging in some departments.
You're being kind.
Yes, and I'm cautious because and I eat up this genre as well, the whole mob and mafia movies, especially period pieces. I love Boardwalk Empire. But the last movie I saw that was in that realm, though, was Gangster Squad, and that movie was terrible.
You had to remind us about that, didn't you?
That movie was terrible. And so that's why I'm a bit cautious with it.
All right.
Ex-SpiderMan Flame Kirsten Dunst is set to join Michael Shannon and Joel Edgerton in the new film Midnight Special, the latest from writer-director Jeff Nichols, who recently directed Mud. The sci-fi project, said to be set in the present day, follows a father and son who are forced into going on the run when the 8-year-old boy develops some kind of extraordinary power. Dennis, buy or sell the sounds of Midnight Special?
Oh, I buy this. Just because of the director, Jeff Nichols. Mud is my favorite movie of the year so far, and every time he has a movie, he has Michael Shannon in it, and so Michael Shannon's like one of the best actors today. Kirsten Dunst, it's not that I don't like her, it's just her as Mary Jane, I thought that was really miscast in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. So it's nothing against her, but even her addition doesn't cloud my high hopes for this movie, and the story just sounds cool. It sounds like a sci-fi superhero type of thing. So I'm down for it.
Yeah, I'm with you on a number of levels there, Dennis. I'm going to buy this as well. Jeff Nichols, I was excited. I was looking forward to whatever it was he was going to do next. So that's one check mark right there. And I'm glad you brought up Kirsten Dunst, because you're right. A lot of us, including me, look, I was really hard on the whole Kirsten Dunst in the Spider-Man films thing. I was very hard on her about that. But I've always said it was never really her fault. I felt like she was put in a position where she couldn't succeed because it was miscasting. So I never blamed her. And I think it made a lot of people, including me, forget she's actually quite a good actress when put in the right kinds of roles. And so I've always poo-pooed on her because of what she did in Spider-Man, but it's not really her fault. I think she did the best she could in a role that didn't fit her. When you put her in stuff that she fits in, I think she can be really good. Team her up with this director, and for me, it's a buy.
His son has extraordinary power. Right there, it should be a buy no matter who's in it. Extraordinary powers equal buy. Star Trek star Anton Yelchin and 21 Jump Street's Dakota Johnson have reportedly joined the cast of the upcoming Shakespeare Cymbeline, along with Ethan Hawke, Ed Harris, and Mila Jovovich. Set to start principal photography on August 19th, 2013 in New York City, Cymbeline unfolds as an epic battle between dirty cops and a drug-dealing biker gang set in a corruption-riddled 21st century America. Said to be in the vein of Sons of Anarchy and in the style of Romeo and Juliet, Cymbeline offers a fresh take on a universal story of love, betrayal, and revenge. John, buy or sell the sounds of Cymbeline?
I thought her as chaste as unsunned snow. I buy this. I'm going to buy anything Shakespeare. I love Shakespearean reduxes and retakes and remakes and all that kind of stuff. I dig it because I always love seeing these fresh looks on it. Like, I'm not a big fan of the modernized yet literal translation of the Romeo and Juliet with the aforementioned Leonardo DiCaprio. I liked it. I didn't love it though. I had some issues with it, but still, sign me up for this. And it's one of the lesser known amongst the general populace anyway of Shakespeare's work. So I think this sounds cool. Sign me up. It's a buy.
I'm gonna have to sell this. I'm a big fan of Anton Yelchin, but yeah, for me, Romeo and Juliet, the modernized take, it didn't do anything for me. I'm a big fan of Leonardo DiCaprio. I like Baz Luhrmann. But when I watched that movie, I think it was just, I don't know, it was just too much for me. Just So I have a feeling I'm going to get the same reaction to this movie.
No, that's terrible. Terrible. I know, John, you're a huge fan of Sons of Anarchy as well, and we've talked so many times about how Sons of Anarchy has so many Shakespearean qualities in it. So I feel like the fact that they're already throwing in Sons of Anarchy vein in makes me want to see it all that more.
It's got potential. It's got potential. All right, folks, listen, we've reached that part of the show for mailbag. Look, if you've got a topic or a question you would like us to address on the show, you can email us anytime at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Now, we get like 1,000 emails a week, so we get to as many as we can. Right now, Chrisley's got a couple of them pulled out of the mailbag. So, Chrisley, what do we got?
Kyle Vanderviver writes, "Hey, John, is the rumor surrounding Christian Bale true? An offer sum of $50 million? If so, what are your thoughts? And just for old time's sake, I was with you all the way on not getting Bale back, but I just could not help from getting excited when I read these headlines."
Okay. So I had to resist the urge a lot to address this while I was up in Canada. So as many of you know, this report started running around all the movie, and forgive me while I put on my ranter's hat for a second. This report started going around all the news sites, almost all of them. A couple of really sharp ones did not run with this. But the vast majority of the sites ran with this headline that Christian Bale offered $50 million by Warner Brothers to reprise his role as Batman for the upcoming Batman and Superman movie. When you read into it, there were a couple things that stood out. Number one, this report, and I use that term very lightly, comes from a $2.99 ebook you can buy off of Amazon by some no-name dude who, according to the reports, now remember, I'm saying according to reports, follow me here, some no-name dude in no official capacity said that an unnamed source from Legendary Pictures told him that Warner Brothers had offered... Now, do you already see this house of cards falling apart? Some unauthorized, no-named, non-represented dude says that some unnamed source from one studio told him that another studio offered Christian Bale $50 million to run with blah, blah, blah. If you're a news site and you run with this story, you're garbage. You're garbage. Now, I have, like I've said this before and I'll say it again, I have no problems with speculating and say, okay, hey, let's play the speculation game. But so many of these sites ran with this story as fact without ever looking into it, without ever giving the caveat said, hey, this is from a completely 100% unreliable source and is not confirmed by anybody. No, they wanted to get the hits and they ran with the headlines. Christian Bale offered $50 million for next Batman film, when it simply was not true. Now, I myself have better things to do with my life than read a $2.99 ebook on Amazon written by a no-name dude who has no position of any authority anywhere about Christian Bale. So I haven't read the book myself. But I'm now being told by a bunch of people, when you read the book, he doesn't actually say Warner Brothers offered him. He's saying if Warner Brothers offered him, Bale should take the money. Which just makes this whole reporting thing fall apart. And this kind of breaks my heart, and here's why. And I know I'm going a little bit broader in the topic here, but indulge me for a second. I've been sitting on this for days. So way back in the day, there was this monumental, in my mind anyway, this great time at Comic-Con 7 years ago, I think it was, where me, Vic Holterman from Screen Rant, Peter Soretta from Slash Film, and a couple other guys, blogging was just starting to become big in the movie world. And we were sitting around at Comic-Con and chatting, and one of the topics was the fact that the traditional trades, the traditional media, was feeling very threatened and talking a lot of trash about blogging. And one of the things that these traditional media outlets that were dying was complaining about was that if these blogs get big, they're just going to run with any unsubstantiated rumor. They're going to make things up left, right, and center. There's no journalistic integrity with blogs. There's no standards for them to meet, blah, blah, blah. And guys like me and Vic and Peter and certain round were sitting around saying, aha, we're going to prove them wrong. We're going to prove them wrong. And as a fan, as a massive fan of the online film community, it breaks my heart a lot to see that these traditional media outlets back 7 years ago were absolutely 100% right. that these days we, as the movie blogging community, have become just as responsible for misinforming our readers as we are for informing them in the desperate attempt to break a story and to get hits. Now, way back in the movie blog days, I just gave up on trying to break stories. I don't care about breaking stories. I want to talk about the news. I don't break the news, so I don't worry about breaking stories. So I can't relate, and I don't understand the type of pressure that those sites who are responsible to us for breaking those stories. That must be a different level of pressure, and I understand that. But, the fact that so many sites, first of all, ran these headlines and then other sites just reposted them, never bothering to follow up to see, could there actually be any validity to this? Instead of just stating, hey, Bale's been offered $50 million. No, he wasn't. He wasn't. But all the sites are running with him. And my friends, my movie viewing friends, I'm talking to you now heart to heart. As film fans, we also have a responsibility as viewers, as movie fans, to check these things out. If I come on AMC Movie Talk sometime, and this has happened, if I come on AMC Movie Talk sometime and just say something is so, you should not just accept that it's so. Follow it up. Read into it, especially if I'm making some wild claim. Like if I come out tomorrow and say, hey guys, guess what? I just found out Val Kilmer is coming back as Batman. You can quote me on it. Then you as a fan, you should take some responsibility to say, okay, that sounds pretty out there. I'm going to look into this myself and see if there's any validity to this. And very quickly, you're going to find out that there's not. And I've had viewers correct me, and that's great. That's one of the best things about being a community is that, if I miss something and I say something in error, you guys are there to correct me, and that's great. And that's the responsibility that we as film fans need to take as well. But I'm telling you, this whole Bale offered $50 million thing has broken my heart on a lot of levels because it shows a complete lack of any integrity that the movie blogging community has taken. And I'm sure I've made this mistake myself. I have made this mistake too, so I'm holding myself just as guilty in this. But, and then we as fans need to follow these things up too. So it kills me. It kills me the level of ignorance that we report and that we accept. And I think both from a film blogging point of view and from a film fan point of view, we need to up our standards and say, number one, we're not going to accept anymore just this rampant, all this Star Wars baloney. I almost said something else. All this Star Wars crap that's been reported is nonsense. So much of this Batman stuff has been nonsense. Some of it coming from good sources. Some of it we should take as legit rumors that need to be looked into. But a lot of it has just been nonsense. And on both sides of the coin, we need to start taking more responsibility, saying, hey, look, let's not just believe anything we hear. And as film blogs, let's not just report anything without putting in massive disclaimers that, look, this is probably not true, but let's indulge it and discuss it. We got to take more responsibility. So I've hated this whole Bale thing, but don't believe it for a second. It's simply not true. Dennis, your view on this whole Christian Bale offered $50 bajillion for Batman's return.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's very upsetting. I mean, right before we did the show, I got messages on Facebook and Twitter about this new rumor that he's being offered $60 million.
$60 billion!
It's like really from a different source. And it's like, okay, people just want to get people to visit their sites and hit their links. And it's like, well, I'll just report another one. He got offered $80 million. It's like, when does it end? And people, claim they have these sources, but yeah, it's just like anyone can say that. I could say, hey, John, did you hear? I heard from reliable sources that Pauly Shore is actually going to be the next Batman. So, that's concrete evidence. And then people take that and then they accept it for what it is, and it's like, man, yeah, I'm with you. I think both the bloggers need to take responsibility and the fans as well. I mean, they should boycott and stop going to sites that fabricate rumors, like they just start things saying, okay, this is this and this and that. And it just, I don't know, all that misinformation just doesn't do any help to anyone.
Yeah. You know what? And I think the unfortunate thing too, is I believe there have been some situations where a site is trying to do right and they get fed bad information Maybe, and sometimes maybe from reliable sources, sources that have been reliable for them in the past, and they get fed certain information, and they run with it, really believing they're running with the truth, and then it turns out they made a mistake. That happens. That happens to all of us. All of us that happens to. And I totally understand that, but, you know, we as fans, and before other news sites just start reposting other people's stories, dudes, think about it for a second. I mean, and you know, we're not sitting here. I always want to give this disclaimer too about the Bale thing, and I'm getting sick and tired of the Bale thing. But this disclaimer is worth giving: is that look, there's nothing to say in the world of possibility. Remember, we're talking about possibilities, not probabilities, just possibilities. That maybe next week Warner Brothers does set up a meeting with Christian Bale and wants to sit down and talk about him returning. It's not going to happen, but it's not impossible. That could. So when we're saying, look, don't listen to this no-name dude who put out a $2.99 Amazon ebook who has no connections to anybody. And you know, when I say that, I'm not saying it's absolutely impossible for Christian Bale to ever sit down with whatever, but it is highly unlikely. And just that particular rumor that's going right now simply isn't true. So I've ranted long enough about that. Sorry about that, guys.
Well, as soon as we're done with Mailbag, I'm going to go write an ebook to tell you guys that a reliable source told me that Zack Snyder was going to call and offer me $100 million to play Wonder Woman. So just throwing that out there.
It'll be reposted on at least 10 sites.
Yeah.
Ryan writes, hey guys, I love the movie news, and I think you guys do a sensational job. I also love the select movie reviews you guys do, and thought you planned to do one for Asylum.
Well, I hadn't planned on doing one for Asylum. Not because, you know, Asylum isn't a big enough
Elysium.
Elysium. Asylum. I'm thinking of Asylum's great new movie, Atlantic Rim.
Sharknado. I'm dying to see Atlantic Rim.
Yeah, me too. We got to do that sometime. We got to rent that bad boy and sit down with like a 2-4 and just watch it. But Elysium, you know, I've been away. So, you know, if I can't review a film fairly quickly, then I just kind of let it go. I didn't mind Elysium, but I'm going to be honest with you. I was a little bit disappointed with it. To me, it was a kind of a classic example of self-plagiarism with Neil Blomkamp, who I still think has all the potential in the world to be like a world-class director. I really, really do. I love District 9 that much. But what I told some friends of mine was this, and just follow me if you will. For those of you who've seen Elysium, if I were to describe a movie to you, I'm going to describe a film to you right now. Okay, let's play a little game. I'm going to describe a movie. Then you tell me if I'm describing District 9 or if I'm describing Elysium. Okay? So here we go. An average guy working hard is looking to improve his station in life. When a tragic event happens to him, something gets into his body that changes him physically. Now, his own government is after him to kill him and get what's in his body. On the run from his own government, the man soon realizes that he is the only hope for salvation and freedom for a downtrodden group of people. Okay, so now I've just described a film to you. Am I describing District 9 or am I describing Elysium? The answer is both. And you know, that didn't sit well with me. I didn't feel like this one was as well written as District 9. I didn't feel the development that I felt in District 9. And I felt the analogy was really hammered over our heads a lot. Like, I get it. Elysium is America. Earth is Mexico. I understand. And it's just, but that's not to take away from the good things that are in the film. I still maintain it. It's a pretty entertaining little film. It's just that I walked out disappointed. And like I said, overwhelmed that sense of self-plagiarism that I was disappointed to see in it. So I didn't come out recommending it to people personally, but I'm not going to poo-poo on people who say that they liked it either, because it does have its merits. Dennis, what did you think of Elysium?
Yeah, I liked it. I didn't love it. I love District 9, so I had very high expectations. And so when I saw Elysium, it was kind of disappointing. I still think people should see it. I mean, it has entertaining action, some cool visuals. The self-plagiarism, I understand. It didn't bother me that much. My problem was that it didn't have a lot of the the good things that District 9 had, which was a better character development, better plot development, much more focused on the story. If you watch Elysium, like there's kind of like a bunch of different like things going on and different themes and stories, but they don't really focus on anything. I mean, even with Matt Damon as the main character, they still kind of wander off here and there, and like someone like Jodie Foster and her character, she's not really in the movie that much, you know, and what we know about her, we don't really know that much. And so I felt like there was a lot of things that they just weren't able to put together like in a nice cohesive storyline. So that's my problem with it. So I still think it's entertaining, but it's definitely no District 9.
All right, folks. Well, that'll do it for us. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of AMC Movie Talk. Sorry we weren't in studio today. It's just that with my flight and all that kind of stuff, we just didn't have time to pull it all together and still get the show up on time today. So thank you so much for joining us. Hey, listen, guys, take a second and click the subscribe button. Become a subscriber to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It'll keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news and, of course, our daily AMC Movie Talk show and our weekend AMC Mailbag show. Make sure you follow us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Hey, give our video that thumbs up click if you like the video. It's just a nice way for you guys to tell us that you appreciate the videos that we do. And if you want an audio-only version of this episode, look in the description of this video for links to our iTunes and our Stitcher Radio. I want to thank, as always, first of all, our lovely host, Miss Crystalie Kennedy. Crystalie, where can people find you online?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Crystalie, and like my Facebook page.
The one and the only Mr. Dennis Zen. Dennis, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at ThinkHero, and you can find me on Facebook, just my name.
And most of all, thank you to you guys. Listen, the most important part of the show, as always, is not what we have to say. It's what you have to say. Make sure you jump on down to the comments section and leave your thoughts on any or all of the topics we discuss here today. Agree, disagree, it's all good. Keep it respectful. But having disagreement is what makes being a film fan fun. So once again, thanks a lot for joining us. My name is John Campea for AMC Movie News. And until then, bye-bye.